Mom, first of all, congratulations. We all know how exciting this is for you and how much work you've put into this book and how important it is to you. And I'm very honored to be interviewing you about your book. So you've told us that The Gift, which was a poem, was the initial spark for what is now Caught Between Worlds, your adventure novel. So tell us how The Gift, the poem, then became a short story that has now become Caught Between Worlds, and how your trip to Iraq for Uncle Bashar's wedding played into that and how it influenced you.
That's a long arc. And it was after your brother died that I wanted to memorialize him in writing. And when you're in grief, you don't have much of a attention span. Poems were my method of communicating then in writing. And so I wrote a poem about Michael. And that was when the character of Mikhail in the book was born, though I didn't know it then. Then a dog entered. And when the dog entered, I named him Gift. And it became a short story between the character and the dog. And the character's name was Mikhail, which is Michael in Arabic. And then when I went to Iraq, I mean, that's like falling into a library, an archaeological site in a library all in one. Everything was bigger than life. Everything was different. Nothing like I expected. The people were nothing like I expected. The homes were nothing like I expected. And the market is something I could never have imagined. So when that happened and we went north, after the wedding we went north, I fell in love with northern Iraq. I felt like I'd been there before. And the story just started kind of flickering in there. And by the time I got home, I had the idea for the novel. And that's many, many years ago.
So we all know how much you love libraries. So you mentioned libraries. And Alexander the Great is a very important figure in this book. And I think one of the reasons a lot of us love it so much is because we love the way you've weaved history, factual history, into an adventure novel. So tell us about your research, the process, and what stood out to you about Alexander's life that made him such an important figure and one that you wanted to weave into Caught Between Worlds.
Well, the first thing was going to Hatra, which is the city where the boys start their journey, and it's a temple filled with decapitated statues. And I started being curious about where those heads of all those statues were, and then I realized I'd seen them in museums all over the world. But 2 or 3 of them reminded me of stone carvings I'd seen in my history reading, and it was Alexander the Great. But I had no intention of bringing him into the book until he inserted himself. And this is something that fiction writers talk about all the time. You have characters who inhabit your life. They just show up and they say, me, me. And he had an air about him that said, me, like in his commander voice. So the more he showed up and the more Hephaestion, his right-hand man, showed up, I knew I had a different book. And I love the history.